In this episode, we're going to focus on a skill that can make or break OT security efforts, translating cybersecurity issues into business impact that non-technical decision makers can understand and act on. For a brand new learner, it may feel like security should speak for itself, because a vulnerability sounds bad and an intrusion sounds worse. In real organizations, though, leaders have to make choices across many competing needs, and they make those choices by comparing impacts. If OT security can only describe technical details, it often loses priority to more visible concerns like production targets, supply chain issues, or equipment reliability projects. When OT security can clearly explain how cyber risk shows up as financial loss, reputational damage, quality problems, and operational disruption, it becomes easier to justify the right controls and easier to decide what to fix first. This translation is not about exaggerating fear. It is about explaining consequences honestly and concretely, in the same language the business uses to run operations. By the end, you should be able to connect common security events to the kinds of impacts executives track, and you should understand why OT environments amplify certain impacts compared to typical office IT. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A useful starting point is to separate an event from its impact. An event is something that happens in the technical world, like a controller being unreachable, an unauthorized login attempt, suspicious network traffic, or corrupted configuration data. Impact is what that event does to the business, like lost production, delayed shipments, safety risk, or damaged customer trust. Two environments can experience the same event and have very different impacts depending on what systems were affected and how the business operates. In OT, the same event can cascade into physical consequences because control systems influence real processes. Translating impact means asking, what does this system support? What happens if it stops? What happens if it behaves incorrectly? And how quickly do effects appear? It also means understanding how a problem in one part of the environment can ripple outward, such as a disruption in monitoring leading to slower response to process anomalies. Beginners should learn that cybersecurity communication becomes powerful when it starts with what is at stake, not with technical jargon. Financial impact is often the easiest category to understand because it can be measured, even if the numbers are sometimes estimates. In OT, financial loss can come from direct downtime, where a line stops producing and revenue is lost or costs increase. It can come from wasted materials, where product in progress becomes scrap because the process was interrupted or parameters were wrong. It can come from expedited shipping and overtime, where teams rush to recover schedules and meet commitments. It can come from equipment damage, where improper operation or sudden shutdowns shorten the life of expensive machinery. There can also be costs related to incident response, like hiring specialists, replacing hardware, and performing inspections. For beginners, the key is that financial impact is not only money stolen, which is more typical in some IT incidents. In OT, financial impact is often about the cost of disruption and recovery, and that cost can be large even when no data is exfiltrated. Operational consequences are tightly linked to financial ones, but they deserve separate attention because they describe what actually happens to the organization's ability to function. Operational impact can include loss of visibility, where operators cannot trust the data they see on dashboards or screens. It can include loss of control, where systems cannot send or receive commands reliably, forcing manual operation or shutdown. It can include degraded performance, where systems run but slowly, causing delayed alarms or unstable control. It can also include forced changes to operating mode, like switching to local-only procedures, limiting production to safe levels, or taking equipment offline as a precaution. In some industries, operational impact can extend beyond the facility, affecting downstream partners, logistics, and customer commitments. Beginners should recognize that operational disruption is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is subtle, like increasing small delays and confusing readings that wear down the ability to manage the process safely. Translating operational consequences means describing what tasks become harder or impossible and how that affects safety and reliability. Quality impact is a category many beginners overlook, but in many OT environments, it is one of the most business critical. Quality problems occur when the product does not meet specifications, which can lead to rework, scrap, recalls, or customer disputes. Cyber events can cause quality problems in obvious ways, like disrupting a batch process mid-run, but they can also cause quality problems in subtle ways, like small changes in set points, sensor calibration, or process timing. Even a brief loss of accurate measurement can cause a process to drift out of tolerance without anyone noticing immediately. Quality impact often has a delayed discovery pattern, meaning the incident happens now, but the quality failure is discovered later, perhaps after product has shipped. That delay can complicate investigations because you have to link operational data to production lots and timelines. For beginners, the important message is that integrity is not only about protecting data from being changed. It is about protecting process truth so the product remains consistent. When you translate cyber risk into quality impact, you are showing the business that security protects the brand promise embedded in every shipment. Reputational impact is sometimes dismissed as vague, but in many industries it is very real and can be measured through customer trust, regulatory scrutiny, and market perception. If a company suffers a public incident that affects operations, customers may worry about reliability, safety, and the ability to deliver on commitments. Partners may demand more assurance, stricter contracts, or additional audits. Regulators may increase scrutiny, especially if the incident involves safety or environmental concerns. Even if the company manages the incident well, the fact that it happened can change how stakeholders view the organization's maturity. Reputational harm can also affect employee morale and hiring, because people prefer to work for organizations that are seen as stable and responsible. In OT, reputational impact is amplified when incidents create visible disruption, such as service outages, delayed deliveries, or safety events. Beginners should understand that reputation is not just public relations. It is operational trust at scale, and losing it can increase costs and friction for years. A key skill in translating impact is explaining the difference between availability, integrity, and confidentiality in business terms, because these are core security goals that map directly to operational outcomes. Availability is whether systems are accessible and functioning when needed, and in OT, availability supports uptime and safe operation. Integrity is whether systems and data remain correct and unaltered, and in OT, integrity supports accurate control, accurate measurement, and consistent quality. Confidentiality is whether sensitive information stays protected, and in OT, confidentiality supports protection of intellectual property, safety-related details, and sometimes competitive positioning. Many OT conversations focus on availability because downtime is visible and costly, but integrity can be even more dangerous because incorrect data can cause unsafe decisions without immediate alarms. Confidentiality matters as well because details about processes, configurations, and vulnerabilities can make future attacks easier. Translating impact means showing that all three matter, but the priority order may differ from typical office environments, where data theft often dominates. Beginners should take away that OT impact translation must emphasize integrity and availability as strongly as confidentiality, because physical processes depend on correct and timely information. Another important translation technique is to describe impact in terms of time, scope, and recovery complexity. Time refers to how quickly the consequences appear and how long they last. Scope refers to how many systems, lines, or sites are affected, and whether the impact stays local or spreads. Recovery complexity refers to how hard it is to restore safe, normal operations, including how much verification is required to trust the system again. For example, a short outage in a non-critical dashboard might be inconvenient, but low impact if operations can continue safely. A short integrity event that alters control logic might be high impact even if it lasts minutes, because recovery requires careful inspection and testing. A connectivity disruption across multiple sites might create broad scope even if each site is technically healthy. This framing helps leaders compare issues without needing deep technical knowledge. Beginners should practice the habit of thinking in these dimensions, because it makes impact explanations more concrete and less emotional. It's also helpful to connect impact to business processes that leaders already manage, such as continuity planning, supply chain commitments, and safety management systems. For example, if a facility has a defined maximum tolerable downtime for a critical line, a security risk that could cause extended downtime becomes immediately relevant. If a company has tight delivery penalties in contracts, a disruption that causes shipment delays becomes a financial and reputational issue. If a facility operates under strict safety and environmental controls, any cyber risk that could affect monitoring or interlocks becomes a governance concern. By tying cyber risk to existing business controls, you show that security is part of the same risk management landscape the organization already understands. This also helps avoid exaggerated claims, because you can point to defined thresholds and expectations. Beginners should learn that translation is strongest when it uses the organization's own metrics and commitments, because those metrics define what impact actually means for that business. Finally, translating impact is not just for reporting after something happens. It is essential for prioritizing preventive work. When you understand which assets and processes drive the biggest financial, operational, quality, and reputational consequences, you can prioritize controls where they matter most. This supports smarter decisions about segmentation, access controls, monitoring, resilience improvements, and recovery planning. It also helps build support for changes that are inconvenient, like scheduling maintenance windows or tightening vendor access, because the conversation is about protecting outcomes rather than following rules. In OT, where time and resources are limited, prioritization based on impact is how you avoid spending effort on low-value improvements while leaving high-value exposures unaddressed. Beginners should see impact translation as a bridge between technical reality and business decision-making, and that bridge is what turns cybersecurity into an operational discipline. As we wrap up, translating OT business impact means connecting technical events to consequences the organization cares about: financial loss from downtime and recovery costs, operational disruption that affects visibility and control, quality degradation that can create scrap or recalls, and reputational harm that can change customer and regulator trust. It also means explaining how security goals like availability and integrity map directly to safe, stable production, often more directly than confidentiality does in typical office environments. Strong translation uses concrete dimensions like time, scope, and recovery complexity, and it ties cyber risk to existing business commitments and thresholds. When you can explain impact clearly without hype, leaders can prioritize wisely, operations can cooperate with changes, and security can be seen as a partner in reliability rather than a source of friction. If you can tell a believable story about how a cyber event becomes a production, quality, or trust problem, you will be able to make OT security meaningful to the people who decide what gets funded and what gets fixed.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.